I got way too many things. My cell phone, a clicker, a microphone. Yeah. All right. So one of the requests I get from a lot of faculty is how do we work with this age group we call millennials? I don't know. If you look into this, you might actually hear alternative terms. So this generation, well, exactly what do we call them? The most common one, which everyone's heard of, is millennials, which I am barely just outside that range, even though I consider myself a millennial. Yeah, you never heard digital natives?
We're digital immigrants.
Yeah, Susie said this term before.
Is this the year you're born? Or
Just by the year you're born. Yeah. Generation Y, mid-70s to mid-90s.
There's a new one.
Is this your?
There's actually a new one.
App generation.
The what?
App generation.
App generation?
There's also the Xbox generation.
Oh, okay. See, the terms can actually get kind of overwhelming.
Is this your generation?
And I generation.
Yes.
Generation me.
I fit pretty close. I'm barely on the edge of those two, but that generation, that's my generation. Generation Y, that's my generation. I remember going through school and doing Pegasus email, if you guys remember that. Because the internet was going to be a big thing now. Yeah. So, but usually what we kind of, the term that most people use is millennials. So it's kind of what we're going to use. It's kind of to be consistent. These date ranges have also been debated, so I'm not going to really solve that, but these are kind of rough years. So right now, millennials are the ones that are entering college, the ones that we see. So the next one's the app generation, you said, Susie?
App generation.
Do you know what the age range for that one is?
Starting about 10 years ago.
10 years ago? Mm-hmm. So about 5-10 years now, we'll have a new generation to worry about.
Yep.
I have to change my PowerPoint slide.
I'm still going to be around. They were born with apps.
This is not a picture of me. I should say that. I don't know. We get a lot of kind of stereotypes about generations. And this is from a Forbes article. And I know a lot of people actually feel that about this millennial generation, is that they're kind of almost narcissist. Like they overinflate their ability. Like a lot of head nods for that one, right?
On his face tells it all.
Exactly. So, and especially for us as educators, you might see that in ways that kind of make it difficult and kind of create some conflict in class and learning. Okay, so here, we're going to kind of break this up for a minute and do an activity. Just because I don't want to listen the whole time and fall asleep. The first part of this is on your table, I have sticky notes. Every table should have them. Hopefully they disappear. The first thing I want you to do, we'll take about 5 minutes. I want you to think of we'll do positive first, and hopefully this will take longer than 30 seconds. What positive characteristics have you noticed in millennials? Yeah. Rick's like, let's move on to negative.
One word
Jeff.
per pad.
Just one per pad. Come here.
Per pad.
Per piece, yes. Sorry, not per note. Per piece. Yeah. What we're going to have you do is collect them from the tables and put them on the board.
Okay.
Aspen, could you do these two tables? As a group. You can do it as a group. Could you collect them from your table and put them on the board? And if you can, if you see like sticky notes that are kind of similar to other ones, kind of group them together.
Okay.
If you see things that kind of go together, like different terms that kind of go together, put them together. We'll do negative in a second. Don't do negative yet. We'll do negative in a minute.
Okay.
Is that a positive?
We're doing positive right now. Just one. Right, yeah.
Are we going with positive?
Oh, that was
I'm still doing positive. Is it getting tough, Amy?
In a positive way. What's a positive? Oh, yeah. That'd be great. Okay.
I do think so.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember that moment when the stroke was up to where she wants to go into her wedding, she first used to
Yeah, I didn't realize recording stuff until we got here. Okay, go and finish that up. Now, let's do some kind of maybe not so positive, negative, maybe characteristics millennials have.
There's a lot. Sometimes there's no. I mean, it is different. That's a negative.
Tech. How was your handwriting?
Write any of them?
Could you make a list saying some like these big things like confident, tech, global awareness,
Here, do you want to separate or do you want to write?
and tolerant?
How much better is your handwriting?
My handwriting's not very good.
Oh, well, you saw mine in one of my presentations.
I'll write, I guess.
Okay, so if you just want to make a list like up the side,
Yeah.
just so it's easier to see kind of those broad themes like we have.
Their thought processes sometimes are very static. I mean, they go from one thing to
Overconfidence in their abilities. That's what you're saying. My students all think that they can all think. I can
They're good in that. I put that one down as good first.
I have to keep coming to that really very
Well done. Adolescent psychology. We have been waiting so long. Let's see, you got the neuroscientist, the adolescent psychologist.
Nursing. We're all sitting in the same state.
The problem is I live with like 5. There you go.
We need a separate one for this. Just this table, separate whiteboard.
Really? Hey, I have a plan.
I'll give this one a name.
How about the
my gosh.
I'm sure that's why they're
You guys need to borrow our sticky notes?
So the question is more about millennials or our perception of millennials.
That's what he's here for, just to set us Yeah, you always got to start with the Plato and Hesiod quotes about how awful teenagers were in, 400 BC and 800.
Hold that thought. I might touch it in a little bit, but
They've always been terrible. The problem is they're terrible for us longer now.
don't quote you on that one. Students have always been terrible. Okay, go and finish up. You guys are doing fine over there.
Shocker, we have to
Okay. We'll wait a second while they finish up the negative one.
It'll be a while.
I haven't read the Gaudreau article.
What's a good Joel article?
The one you quoted up there. Are millennials deluded narcissists?
Oh, yes. I didn't even look at the title. I can send it out to everyone.
Excellent.
Like all the references I have, I can send out.
I love not having to find things myself. So.
We like to do that. We just send everything out to people when we're done.
Exactly.
Here's like a bunch of links and articles.
I know, I just post everything on my website. I'm like, how about it? If I had
Put that weird fun here.
Somebody, yeah, I guess. I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean,
Worry is a
benign.
Okay, so while they're finishing up, let's go and move on. You can see on the board over there, it looks like there's more negative than positive. There is a to find. There is a to pick out. There are some things that are we find positive about this generation. One thing, they're more confident. Sometimes that can actually be a bad thing if they're too overconfident.
Arrogant.
Yeah. Another thing, tech savvy.
Yeah.
I do love my apps. Miscellaneous.
I ask my students all the time, how's this thing work?
Don't worry, my parents do that too.
They helped me with a
How do I do an attachment?
camera. I've never used one.
Exactly. People skills. You feel like they're more relational to other people, more interactive.
Really?
Yeah. You don't think so?
No, I think it's exactly
It depends on the venue.
Nobody knows how to talk to somebody. It's all like contextual.
But it depends on the venue. They're more interpersonal online.
They can't really carry on a substantial conversation.
I can see that.
It's short.
That's all. High school, how many kids did you see having substantial conversations when you were in high school?
I don't remember. It's a long time
It was
ago.
always the awkward, like,
I'll be honest. Creative. Okay, now let's get into the other side. Let's see, what's the first one? Disrespectful. That's a lot we hear from faculty. They feel like there's not a lot of respect from students. Instant gratification. They want it now. Especially the grade or the learning to happen right away. I can't see, what does it say? Entitled, self-centered. And too much technology. So they're tech savvy, but yet too much. Okay.
And they think the idea of having to read something is just outrageous.
Why read if
Why don't you have a video?
What can I
about
just
that?
Google
Why
it?
don't you do something
Just kidding.
like that? I have to read something?
Yeah. Go, Rick.
I have a question with students who are tech savvy and everything. I was wondering if any of you in your classes require them to blog, and if so, do you get substantial stuff from them? You know, when they're blogging about a subject, do they say something substantial about it? Is that a good learning tool?
And I have to require that they link it with something. They're free to have opinions and observations. They need to link it with something we discussed in class or read in for class.
Okay.
Try to get them to show that there is a link between their thought, their observation, and the things we're discussing.
And is it working?
It's mixed grill, or partly cloudy.
Yeah, I've had that too, where you do an activity like that, and it kind of works sometimes, but not all the time. So,
Well, the question, are they more willing to engage if they can blog? Just use that technology. Is that
that's a good question. One of the questions that we
open them up and they're more willing to?
That's the question we have. Is the fact that we have technology, do students actually want to access or to learn through technology is actually a very important question. I think Heidi and Betty had a comment.
I teach an online class through BYU Idaho as well, and we have to do discussion boards. And people can point up and down. This is a waste of time. I don't care what other people think. I don't want to read what somebody else has to say from, you know, some little town, blah, blah, blah. So, and there's some people who do like it. But I would say the feedback I've gotten is that most of them don't want to do it.
Exactly. It's just because technology exists, it's necessarily students like using it. That's,
Well, using it to learn. I mean,
Yes.
the majority of them have never done that. They use it for entertainment. They haven't used it to actually engage in learning and do deep thinking. So.
yeah, it's true.
We're using an online discussion with our nursing classes, and we break them up into smaller groups. We don't do the whole class all at once. And each student is assigned to actually lead the discussion one week. We have a topic, and we have a case study, and they have to come up with questions on that. But they've got to have something to back up their assertions that are there, and the students also have to do that. They have to say, well, I found it here that it says this, you know, or something like that. They can't just say, oh, I don't think that's right. So we found it to be quite a valuable pre-learning activity as they come in for that day with that topic. They've already done quite a bit of research on it, and they seem to like that online format. But it's a smaller group. If we were doing it for the whole class, I think it would just drive them nuts because they would say, I don't know who I'm responding to and what's going on here, but in a smaller group, it seems to work.
Right. Good point.
And I learn a lot of things that way too, because occasionally they come up with something that's not a valid resource, and you're like, you know, you may want to check out this as well, because this isn't really a good, reliable resource for your information. So.
Go, Rick.
It's kind of interesting what they're saying because, you know, my impression is there are endless people that blog and endless people that read their blogs, and I say, why would you care about somebody else's blog? But they do. So I just thought that maybe that would mean that they do like to blog, but apparently, you know, so maybe it's certain people are into blogging.
Right. It might be, yeah.
I think it really has to do with the context, the student that's in your class, what you're actually teaching. I mean, because a nursing class, in order to get into nursing, you have to be a certain level of student already. You have to be admitted to the nursing program. And whereas, you know, when I teach Skill Assessment 1000, it's anybody that needs help. So when I use a blogging format to engage students, it's completely different. I have to set a rubric. I have to give an example of here's a good response, here's a bad response, and I need to make it personal and reflective, so that they feel confident talking about my own experience versus I have to go out and find research and support it with something. They do have to respond in a substantive way to each other, so that enforces further that there is a structure, there is an expectation. It's not just free form like you might do on a blog or on a Facebook post or something like that. It's much more than that. And, but if I were to do the same thing where it's more open format in a core course, a science-based course, or something like that, I don't think I would get the same results.
Yeah.
And I've had pretty decent results with it in that format.
Okay. This is a good topic, good question. Moving on, we need to kind of understand better this generation. So a really good resource that I found was from the Pew research. To begin with, most of our students do fall in this age group. Not surprising, right? Most of our students are what we consider millennials. But what types of values or what types of behaviors do they perform? Did they report, at least? This has come from millennials, so it's kind of like not perceptions, but what they say about themselves. There is a kind of a change. You know, now millennials, there's kind of a growth in Hispanics and blacks, not so decline in whites compared to other age groups. UVU, however, and take a guess at this one. Do we need to show this slide? I will. Yeah, mostly white. Still, a large percentage of our students are white. I'm not sure how it compares over the years, but most of our students are in this category.
That was for all college students? Okay.
Now, like you said, tech savvy. You can see a lot of us in here, and you're right, and this is justified. Millennials, do you have a profile on a social networking site? 75% say yes. I don't want to ask the follow-up question. Do you have multiple social networking sites? That'd be interesting to me, at least. So, Generation X, 50-50. Boomers, not so much. Silent, no, not really. Yeah.
Interesting.
How often, go ahead, Chuck. I'll send them out to you guys. I'll send everything, articles, resources, links out to everyone so you can have it. Yeah.
Quick one. Is there anybody here that uses Facebook as part of your?
Really?
Oh, go ahead.
Use it, meaning you tapped into that, you have a link to your Facebook page and your students access you through Facebook or something? Or?
No, not anymore. I did a couple of years ago, but
last semester, after the great speech of the convocation, I went out and I made Facebook pages for the classes I taught. And I was really disappointed in the lack of response. I found that only about half or 2/3 of the class signed up for it. And the only time people accessed it is when they were stuck on a homework assignment. And then they'd say, how do I do this? And then someone would cut and paste the answer and put it in the response.
okay.
So that backfired. So millennials do use it a lot. Several times a day. I should admit how many times I've checked Facebook today. I don't think I will. Once a day. Millennials by far check Facebook once a day, multiple times. And during class, which is part of the annoying behavior. Millennial priorities. Kind of difference between generations here. Millennials, they believe one of the most important things, the top two, is actually being a good parent and have a successful marriage. Seems crazy, is that what you said?
Well, that reflects how many children are being born to single parents. I mean, there's just less marriage.
They'll come up in a minute, actually. Millennials tend to be more liberal and vote Democratic. Kind of narrowed there for a while. This survey is a few years old. So they asked them what makes them unique. And like you said, tech savvy, like characteristic, millennials say that too, technology use. That is one of the defining characteristics of the generation. Yeah, smarter, you see that? Every list has smarter on there.
IQ scores have been going up for the last 15 years.
So every generation thinks they're the smarter than the other generation. Technology use, music, pop culture, which I didn't really thought to put on there, but I guess it's a response. More liberal, tolerant, smarter clothes. Generation X, so you can tell how it compares. Technology use is up there too, but not as much. Work ethic. Conservative, traditional, smarter, and respectful. I feel like a smarter is on like almost every list. Boomer, so you can kind of see how those compare. But by far, you're right when you say this generation, and that's kind of like almost an identity, I guess, for the generation, that the technology use. Do you sleep on your cell phone? Which I don't get this at all, but apparently it's something that happens a lot with millennials. They don't want to. They don't want to miss.
I don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Anything.
I agree, but I guess they. Go ahead, Nate.
A factor to consider there is how many use their cell phone as an alarm clock.
Could be. I was thinking, like, what's so important they find out right away? Texting. Another behavior that we hate to see in class that happens a lot is there's a lot of texting going on. Okay, look at this, especially median in the past day. 20. It's a lot of texting. I think like 2 or 3 is a lot, but apparently 20. Apparently I'm a bad millennial. I should text more. That's a lot of texting going on.
And yet it's not about anything.
It's like,
I'm sitting in class.
How many of those are to their parents?
yeah, exactly. Other things. So yes, again, still the technology use. Millennials created social networking, use wireless internet away from home, post videos of themselves online, use Twitter much more than other generations.
Snapchat and Instagram.
Snapchat.
Snapchat and Instagram.
Texted while driving, 64%.
Okay, that's scary.
So yeah, so it's a lot of texting you'll see when it comes to complaints. Another thing is it's kind of societal values and trends. Okay, saying it's bad for society. More single women deciding to have children. Pretty straight across the board, say it's a bad thing for society. More gay couples raising children. It's becoming less a generation, less a bad thing. More mothers work inside their home, same thing. Less generations change there. More people living together without getting married. You can see the change right there, right? More millennials will say it's not a bad thing to live together without getting married. More people marry different races. See that change right there. So again, as for millennials, just give you kind of an idea about millennials. Bad thing, no difference, or good thing. More single women have children. Again, quite a high percentage says it's a bad thing or indifferent. So they've been there's some discussion. Some change within the millennials themselves. Satisfaction of how the way things are going today in society. Millennials, compared to other age groups over 30, let's say is going well compared to other age groups. Other age groups are more likely to say it's not.
Each group is more idealistic generally.
Let's see. Here's some differences. So comparing millennials to Gen X, boomers, and silent generation. Difference in values and attitudes. So it's particularly big there for the boomers and silent generation. Use of technology, again, that's the theme, which you already knew about, that's actually kind of being verified here, is that the technology use for millennials. Different behaviors and lifestyles, different historical experiences.
Lack of historical experience.
I guess a lack of perspective too for history.
Here we go. Who has better values? Older or younger? By far more people said the older generation. So you say, well, if it's kind of like lack of respect, that survey kind of reflected that too. Who has better values? The older generation. Work ethic. Did we have that up there? I don't think anybody actually put it up there. That's one we hear too. Is older people have a better work ethic. Respect for others. Older people The only thing millennials really do better than the older generation is have attitudes toward other races and groups.
How does that not fall into respect for others?
Oh, I can't touch on my head without looking at the survey.
For other races and groups?
Maybe.
I think it's more your own people versus
Yeah.
face-to-face respect versus local.
This is a big one right now in the news. Go ahead, Chuck.
This date is 4 years or so old.
40 years old. I haven't found a newer one, but I could check and see if they do have a newer one.
Some of these, I think, would be a little different.
Yeah, they would be a little different. I wonder if this would change. There's definitely a lot of things going on right now. But millennials, by far, are the other generation either strongly favor allowing gay and lesbians to marry. Also, this might not surprise you, but where did millennials get their news from? Here's a shocker. It's not from the newspaper.
Listed there.
I know, right? I do too. I thought it was really high. I thought most of get from the internet would be the highest, but they said TV was the highest, which really surprised me.
I don't even go to the
Does
internet.
ESPN count?
Television sources, CNN, followed by Fox, then MSNBC. Internet sources, Yahoo and CNN are the largest. Yeah?
Because they have apps.
Because they have apps?
Because they didn't ask about Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's move to kind of some educational questions. So for male educational attainment, for millennials, the smallest number was less than high school. Then high school, then college, some college, then the last one there, more than 4 years of college. So it's actually, if you compare the generations, this generation has a lot of access to not only completing high school compared to other generations, but also some college. So you see a lot more, obviously see a lot more students coming into college. Wide array of students, more than before. It's almost like an expectation to go to college now. When in the past it might be other reasons why you go to college, but you didn't really expect to go to college just to go to college. Females. Again, you see a lot more females are finishing high school as compared to other generations. And more have some type of college. What's that, Susie?
I said, except in Utah, we're the lowest.
I was thinking that. I was looking at that too. UVU still has pretty low. So millennials already college graduate, plan to graduate. You can break them down by gender. More women actually plan to graduate from college than men. I don't know if you heard that. It's kind of not as many men are going to college or finishing college. Age group right here, you can see how it differs. Not surprising, some finish college or some just drop out. But a lot of people actually plan to go to college or are in college. So it's almost like the next thing to do in life. Here's an interesting idea. This is from another survey. And it's a question that I think is very relevant to us in higher education. So reasons for deciding to go to college. The top reason, to be able to get a better job. They're coming to learn skills and they want to get the skills. And they actually might hear them say that. I just want to know just to get past this class, to get the skills, to get a better job. I don't care about anything else. I've heard that before when I've taught. Go, Josh.
Okay, I went to, I'm in the Cal, there's the leadership here, and there's a mastermind.
Are you millennial?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a mastermind where the CEO of, it's called Red Tree, it's an organization called Red Tree, and he did a ton of research on millennials and how it can, I guess how the managers can use it to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said is that millennials, 9 out of 10 millennials believe they deserve their dream job. So that is a big motivation for going to college, and that doesn't surprise me that money isn't the first one, but getting a better job.
Right, right. So yeah, and that link, I'll actually share that link with you. I'll send you guys the information to articles, the PowerPoint, and that link too. So they go all try to find it. Thanks, Josh. Another question. Okay, let's see. These are things that you do in class. They call it selected habits of mind. It's kind of an interesting title, but asking questions in class, accept mistakes as part of the learning process, revise your papers to improve writing. This is self-reported. You know, we could talk about research methods. Is they actually doing that? But this is what they're saying at least. They say they ask questions and they accept the mistakes as part of the learning process. At least about half of them do at least. Revise paper, evaluate quality of reliability information you received. Lowest one, look up scientific research articles. Not the favorite thing to do. Biggest reason for dropping out, 2 reasons. Can't afford school and don't have time. These are kind of linked. 2 biggest reasons why millennials, they want to go to school, but they can't for other reasons. Those are 2 biggest reasons why. Another thing is, okay, some other reasons, studying and working. Working full-time, do not go to school, about 30% of all millennials. And you can see the age breakdown. The older you get, you can see how it changes for the group. Not surprising, as you get older in life, you can't really kind of stay in school forever. You have to move on. Work full-time, go to school, about similar there. Work part-time, do not go to school. Here's the one we kind of, I wonder what UVU itself would fit in this. Work part-time, go to school. In fact, actually, the next slide kind of talks about work hours of students. Especially for younger ones. Do not work and go to school. That kind of used to be kind of what college was. You didn't work, you went to school full time. That's kind of changing. Here it is. This is from 2011. It's one of the surveys that UVU does of the students. It's a few years old. I couldn't find any newer data, but it's close enough. About 48% say they don't work any hours outside of class. 15% say they work part-time. Maybe they work some hours, 1 to 5 hours, 12%, 10 to 15, 21. Probably the ones get closer to full-time, 14%. So there's a greater amount of students actually working outside the class. Go, Chuck.
I ran across some data, unfortunately it was 15 years or so ago, that suggested that students who worked up to 20 hours a week tended to get better grades than those students that work at 0 hours.
Interesting.
Has there been any hard data on that anybody's seen?
I haven't seen anything recently.
I've heard that before, but yeah, like
I probably saw the same studies,
Susie.
but I've seen a few that are like that. That are the kind of the busier you are, the better you tend to be at managing your time.
Yeah, up to a point. Yeah,
yeah, up to a
Up
point.
to
Kind of
the-
an idea.
there was another survey that said that a lot of millennials were overloaded. So up to a point, it might be good to help them manage their time, but if it's too much work, obviously it overloads. Okay, more millennials are pro-government. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, just get you an idea. Kind of reported ideology. More millennials tend to be the more liberal group. To have more liberal kind of values and traditions. Okay. And let's go a little faster. Anyway, sorry, kind of need to move on. But so as a generation, you kind of see these characteristics. There have been some other explanations about why we see this in students. One is, well, students, and Susie was talking about this earlier, students have always been like this for ages, right? This came from another article in the Chronicle of Higher Education saying, well, you're placing a lot of emphasis on the generational hypothesis, but maybe this is part of the developmental aspect of it. Students in this age group have always been kind of, not always well thought of. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble their food, and tyrannize their teachers. Yeah, I think a lot of teachers feel that way. Let's see, in 1855, described students as indulgent, petty, uncontrolled at home. So there's this, that kind of attitude from a professor towards students is kind of, it's been around for a long time, probably around for a long time still. You could also talk about maybe cognitive development. So maybe students are still cognitive developing is going on. Experts versus novices. This quote right here, my boss loves to tell everyone, you probably heard this before, students are not us. They're not experts. They're coming from a different place. They might understand something differently because of that, and so to take that in consideration. So that there are other explanations, but we're not going to go into them for time's sake. Okay, so what's instructors do? First of all, I think there's kind of some parallels here between what engaged learning, learner-centered teaching, and how we can actually, as college professors, work with students. First of all is talking to your students. This can be the hardest part of it. So I got some millennials here. In fact, I have a couple that disappeared. So now we're down to 3. So if you guys want to come up now, we'll have you guys. I gave you some questions because, especially for learning, this is really important. If you want to come up here, because there's only 3 of you now. So I gave you some questions beforehand. I'll send you this article too with all the million things I'll send you afterwards about listening to millennials. Okay, this is the idea. If teachers become more learner-centered, that means kind of engaging students, we should take into account what they say. So what they did is I asked them these questions. So I don't know if you remember the questions or not. So the first one is, think about all the things that you have learned since coming to the university. What was the most valuable, important thing that you learned? How did you learn it? How to contribute to your learning experience? So, go ahead.
Awesome. I think the most important thing that I've learned while I've been at the university, I'm a freshman, I just started last semester, is just to ask questions and to treat my professors like actual people rather than my, godlike superiors.
No.
One of my experiences I had, I'm in the honors program, so I have a class called Colloquium where we meet once a week and talk with our kind of overall leader of the honors program, and she'll teach us things. We'll have people come in. And one of the first things she said to us was, don't be afraid to ask questions and that your professors are real people too. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just to be able to approach professors and keep them relatively close to my own level.
Okay, I guess it's
any order you want to go on. Oh, by the way, this is, I'm sorry, I introduced you. This is Jeff, Nate. I don't know why I can't think of names right now.
Trevor, I'm hurt.
Tip of the tongue right here. Aspen. I really do know your name.
I know.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned since coming to college is that learning is really an individual thing, that you really have to want to learn. And I think that's the big thing in high school, is that they're trying to force all this information on the students, and the students really just aren't interested in high school. I wasn't at all. I didn't have great grades in high school, but I came to college and something just clicked, and I realized that learning is important, and there are things that I really care about in learning, and it's fun to learn. And I've had really good grades in college, and it's been awesome. And I think one of the classes that has really showed me that was last semester. I was in English 2010, and my professor she was awesome. She would just stand up there and kind of give us pep talks every day. Because there's not much that you can learn, that you can teach in English 2010, because the students usually have English down, and and it's just a matter of fine tuning the writing. And to do that, you have to write. You have to write a lot.
Yeah.
And so she just really pepped us up, yeah, and tried to get us to love learning, and that really helped me.
All right, my name is Nathan, like Trevor said. I would just like to reflect back on last semester. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from my educational experience is that learning is a process. It's not just like an event. It's a process, and it's going to span throughout life. And I think that what happens a lot of times is sometimes we shy away from the things that are hard, that we're not really good at. But that is where real self-esteem comes from, is doing things that are hard to you. And so last semester I took a Math 1010, 1050 combined course. Just to give you a little perspective, it was 8 credits, 2 hours a day, every day. So it wasn't an easy course. It was pretty rough. And I wouldn't consider myself a great math student in high school, kind of the same as Jeff. C+ grades, C- grades probably. But it's because I didn't understand, I didn't know the applicability that math really had, and I didn't know that it's actually not so much about getting X and Y, it was about the creativity, the path in which you arrived to the answer. And so my professor, she really inspired me, really. That course probably changed my whole paradigm on how I view education. Learning how to think hard, think long and hard, and simplify complex equations and things. So I think that's one of the most valuable lessons I've learned, but definitely not the only one.
Okay, thanks. Next question. Tell me, oh, go ahead. Oh, yeah, if you have a follow-up question, go ahead.
So my question for you is, do you accept your professor as an expert in the field, or do you challenge what he or she knows? What's your perspective on what your professor says?
I'm a philosophy major, so I generally enjoy going against what my professor says. I mean, I have a legacies class where he will say something and I'll be like, oh, what about this thought, and there's this thought, and he's like, well, I've never considered it that way. I think one of our biggest assets to professors is that we do think differently, and you guys know so much, and so once you give us that knowledge, then we can push forward. And so I do understand that you're all experts and know more than I do, but I also have a different perspective. So I feel like as long as there's an equal balance of when I need to listen and when I need to speak up and voice my opinions, then teaching can happen.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, really quick.
No, you're fine.
Just respond. Follow up. What, in your view, makes a professor approachable? Maybe just quickly for all of you.
I think a big thing is if they actually take time to get to know you. Like maybe not necessarily like memorize everybody's names, but just kind of, talk to them as if they're actual people and not just students. And I'm in a history class this semester, History 1700, so it's a general ed, and it's a huge classroom, and there's no one-on-one time with the professor, and that's really hard since there's like 400 students in there. But it's really intimidating when there's that big of a class and you can't really get one-on-one time to approach professors. So I think a lot of it is kind of circumstances, but also you can make sure that they know that you're engaged as well.
I think for me is tell me what you do, kind of a mentality. I think maybe a lot of students don't realize that you're not just professors. A lot of you probably have PhDs and you do study and you do so much more than just teach a class. And so I think that it's very valuable to know what you do and kind of show us what you're nerdy about, We have our little quirks and nuances, but show us what you love and why you're so passionate about your field. Because in my math class, I repeat, I had a conversation just today with that math professor, and she showed me the pictures that she was taking of tire tracks in snow because it was Carolyn Hamilton. It's I can't remember the technical term for it, but when there are shapes that don't overlap each other, but they're perfectly spaced around, she wanted to figure out the mathematics behind this car tire, and I just thought that's cool. Tell me what you're nerdy about. Tell me what you do. And it makes it fun for me because now I see math everywhere. It's on the bottom of my shoe, for heaven's sake. So I think, tell me.
I have had a really good class. My astronomy professor was probably one of my favorites last semester, and we had a class of like 200 plus. But he did, like, he knew who you were and would just, we had little name tags and was like, okay, you know, make jokes with us, just be a person, like realize that we're kind of on the same level as you. I mean, we can learn from each other, and I feel like if you can treat me like a person, like I can treat you that way, then I can approach you.
Okay, next question. Tell me about a time when a class meeting went very well. What was it like? How did it contribute to that learning experience? Tell me about a time when a class meeting did not go very well. What was it like?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Class meeting like,
Is this a Scott meeting or
are we talking like a class blast?
Like a class.
Okay, class.
Yeah.
I have a good experience with this. Last semester I was in philosophy as well. Philosophy 1050 or 1010 or something. Just intro to philosophy. But it was an awesome class. The professor was so good at leading the discussions so that the students would teach each other. Like she would ask one question and then she would kind of guide it to where she wanted to go with the discussion, and people would like ask questions, and I don't know how she did it, but every single time we met, every single, you know, whatever she wanted us to learn in that day, we would learn it. And it was really cool because it felt like we were teaching ourselves, and we could kind of argue with each other and bounce ideas off each other, and it was just a really good interactive class every single time. And it was very interesting too. Like I always wanted to go to that class because I knew that I could say things and pose questions to people, and it was just a really free-flowing and interactive experience. It was cool.